moment to breathe. Grab a beverage or two. We got professional guests with lots of stories for you. So take a seat right here and join us on Careers Over Beers.
Welcome to Careers Over Beers podcast. I'm the host, Jesse Krause, and this episode of the podcast is actually brought to you by Boot Hill Distillery. We're drinking some Boot Hill Distillery vodka today. So Boot Hill Distillery is a farmer-owned and operated distillery located in Dodge City, and it's atop the footprint of the original 1870s Boot Hill Cemetery site. So their grain is used to make their spirits, and it's grown on their own family farm, making them truly a soil-to-sip distillery, and it's the first of its kind in Kansas, actually. So Boot Hill Distillery makes several whiskeys and bourbon, in addition to vodka, gin, and recently added canned cocktails to their lineup. You can find Boot Hill Distillery in any liquor store local in Kansas, or go to Dodge City for the whole distillery experience. So yeah, let's get some Boot Hill Distillery vodka in us.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are pouring soda water first, huh?
Well, it was what was closest.
Oh. So vodka, soda, lime. That's what you guys are a fan of.
Mm-hmm. It's our go-to.
It's your go-to?
Can never go wrong.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me what you do.
I'm Robyn Jackson.
And I'm Kristi Windish.
Welcome.
Thank you. And we own True Compass. So True Compass, we provide career aptitude assessments and career guidance. We help students find their ideal college major or their career path if they're not college bound. And we help adults find more career satisfaction.
That's perfect for this podcast, right?
Yeah, we thought.
Careers Over Beers. Today it's Careers Over Vodka. But
Thank you for accommodating us.
yeah, that's perfect. Right up my alley. I'm just here to listen about careers, but you're actually helping people and guiding them into their careers, right? Mm-hmm. And we're drinking vodka, soda, limes.
Mine seems kind of strong.
There's nothing wrong with that. It'll help you talk better.
It'll be fine, yeah.
All right, well, cheers before we get started.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming on.
I really love these glasses.
The Midwest.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a big local guy, you know. I like local things, local businesses.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, yours is
it's
different.
not that
So
bad.
I picked these up in Wichita, actually.
Did you?
I
I'm going
did.
to have to look for them. I have two
Yep.
sisters who live on the West Coast, and they think that's special. And
They think the West Coast is special?
Yes, but I'm like, boy, it seems that your favorite people that you met out there are from the Midwest because they're the most authentic and natural and fun.
And nicest.
Yes,
you
and
know,
nicest,
everybody
yeah.
that I know that's not from the Midwest says everybody's the nicest here.
It's so true.
We got that going for us.
Yeah.
I love it here. The only people that don't like the Midwest are people that were raised in the Midwest, I feel like. Everybody from outside loves it that I've met that's moved here from, you know.
Mm-hmm. Were
Yes.
you raised here?
I was raised here, yeah.
Yeah.
So
She wasn't.
Well, no, but I grew up in Illinois, so
Yeah, that's true.
still the Midwest.
still the Midwest
Yes.
kind of.
And we lived, you mentioned Dodge City. My husband was just there. He works for Cargill, and he loves distilleries, so I'm going to have to let him know that he missed a chance to go out there. But because of his job, we've lived on the East Coast. We've lived in Colorado, which, of course, we loved, and in the South a little bit, but we just love the Midwest.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's a good time here. All right, well, this is a special episode, 2 guests. You know, I don't do that very often, but I'm welcome to it. So let's get into it. You guys started True Compass
Yes.
together?
Yep, 2.5 years ago. So we were co-workers in public schools for years. We worked together just down the hall from each other. We were both therapists within the schools. And then I'll let you jump in and tell them your experience.
Okay.
I'm going to move your mic up a little bit.
So Robyn is a school psychologist. I'm a speech pathologist by trade. So that's what we did for a long time.
Yeah.
But as my kids got older and I had to navigate the college decisions and careers and help them, we had heard about aptitude testing out of the state. So we drove to Dallas, spent a lot of money and 2 nights at a hotel to get this testing for my son. And it was fascinating. But the experience itself wasn't great. The person that we worked with, we didn't love. My son didn't really connect with her. But the actual information from the aptitude test was really helpful in helping him decide which path to take, which he chose computer science.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then when my second son came along, we did find out about the test that we use, which is called the Highlands Ability Battery. very similar information, not as much money, and I didn't have to travel. But again, the experience was not great.
What was wrong with the experience?
So the woman who did the testing didn't provide any other information. So or ask him any other information. So about really his interests. And so the Highlands Ability Battery is amazing and gives you a list of careers that are matched to your abilities.
So just for people listening, this aptitude test is something where you just answer a bunch of random questions that are about yourself?
Not so much. So most personality tests, interest inventories are asking you questions. What do you like? How do you learn? How do you solve problems? But that's really based on how you think you solve problems or what you think you like, which is important. You do need to ask those questions, what you like. But the ability battery really is 19 timed exercises.
Oh, okay.
That really look at objectively how you solve problems, what your spatial skills are like, how you learn best, your memory channels.
So it's more of like putting your brain to the test and then just kind of giving you a score based on how you did versus the other tests where somebody might think, oh, well, I'm definitely a visual learner, but they're not.
Right.
But they think it's cool to say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have that objective data right in front of you, black and white. There's no denying it. So it's just gives you a lot of clarity into exactly where your strengths are, what you're good at, where you should concentrate, and maybe some of the areas that maybe are blind spots, some of the areas that are maybe a little harder for you.
Okay, interesting. But the experience wasn't great. So you decided, you wanted to create something on your own that gave a whole experience with it?
Exactly. Yeah, I would just come back to work every day after these experiences with my kids and be like, Robyn, you would be so much better at describing these results. And because she's amazing, we've sat in meetings together with families for 7 years in a row where we just were like, oh, you explained that so well. You're so in touch with these people. And so really, really adding some things to the ability battery. That's part of it, but really getting to know that student, ask the parents some questions. I felt as a parent I wasn't involved in that process at all, and parents are pretty insightful. Sometimes they push their kids to do things, but for the most part they see things in their kids that are spot on. I see their strengths, but kids don't believe it from their parents.
Oh, hell no.
You really need to hear
They're
it
like,
from
yeah,
somebody
right,
else.
Mom, I don't believe that. You don't know me. I know way more than you. I'm 17.
Yes, right. Yeah. So Robyn and I really just sat down for a couple of years. We got certified in this test, and we figured out what are all the parts that need to be part of this process.
Yeah. Beforehand, they were more just like a clerk or something that was just giving you this test, and here's your results. See you later.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah, it felt pretty sterile.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this some sort of magic trick that you're just like, oh, I'm not going to ask you any questions, but I know all this about you? It's kind of ridiculous. You can go online and get a quiz that says, you should be a trash collector.
If you just want to take a quiz, just get online. But you brought that counseling, that world that you came from in the schools where you're actually talking to the student and you're engaging. You kind of brought that aspect to this too, didn't you?
Right, absolutely. And I think that's the value, the takeaway from this in comparison to hopping online and not knowing why the results are what they are, that we dive in deep to each client's results so that they know exactly how they're wired. And a lot of times, when we're pointing out your aptitude assessment shows that here's where your strongest abilities lie, we're not revealing anything that's shocking to them. They know that's an area they're strong in. But what we see happens is it puts words to it where they can then articulate their strengths very well, and that can set them apart. And it also helps them embrace their strengths, where sometimes we assume if something comes really easily to you, you kind of assume it comes easily to everybody, and you don't set that aside and really pay attention to it. So what we can bring to the table for them is making sure they're encouraged in that strength and really embracing it of this is what you're built to do, and don't ignore that. Be able to really concentrate on what can you do with this skill, and that's going to make life and career and everything just go that much smoother if you're always tapping into how you're wired, what your strengths are.
Do you ever see cases, though, where somebody's strengths pop up and they disagree that they're like that, or they don't like to hear that? Does that ever happen?
I've never had anybody where they didn't like what they heard. I've had kind of opposite of, where they'll have a career track in mind, and we won't ever tell somebody that they can't do something. What we'll do is say, well, according to the data...
According to the data, you shouldn't be doing that. You're a lot smarter than a TikTok dancer.
We'll
No
point
offense.
to, right, she's like the world's best TikTok dancer, so you just offended her.
Are you really?
Well, I haven't actually done it on TikTok, but I am a pretty good dancer. Just ask me. Just give me enough.
Well, there's a difference between being a good dancer and doing it for a hobby and aspiring to make money being a
Exactly.
TikTok dancer when
Yes.
there's 20 million people out there doing it.
Exactly.
You should get your own TikTok channel.
Yeah.
What'd you ask me? Sorry.
What did I ask you? Oh, yeah. Does it ever surprise somebody, or do they disagree with it?
So
Or
what we'll say is, here's maybe the challenges you're going to face. We're not saying you can't go do that career, but for example, I had a teenage girl I worked with whose mom was convinced she should be a nurse. Well, she wants to help others, and that's what mom was hearing. When I looked at her aptitudes, it's showing that anything fast-paced is not going to be good, that there's no like attention to detail, observation was very low. So I was saying, we don't have to rule out healthcare or the medical field, but here's some of the challenges you might face. So maybe let's shift. What else is there in healthcare that we could look at that maybe wouldn't tap into some of those abilities that are going to be a little bit more challenging for you? So there's been a few examples like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of we test kids as early as 14. We usually try to say sophomore junior year is best, but I had a sophomore student, so pretty young, who loved his chemistry teacher, loved his chemistry class, had amazing memory ability, so he memorized the periodic table. So of course his parents and his teachers were like, this is your gift, you should be a chemist. Well, his personality and aptitudes didn't support that at all.
really?
But partly because he's really extroverted. He's more of a generalist. That's one of my favorite parts of this test. Lets you know if you're more of a generalist or a specialist. And he's a pretty strong generalist, which means he wants some variety. So after a few years of chemistry, he's going to be like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And so he might have this interest in chemistry, but his strengths were really probably his personal skills, which I'm just totally thinking about, like you and IT. Like you obviously you're probably a little bit more extroverted and personable than some of the people that you work with, which is why you have this as an outlet. But you also maybe could move into those leadership positions, whereas some of the other people who are strong specialists and introvert are like, I'm going to stay right here and be really good at what I do, and I don't really want to lead the team. Whereas this kid probably wants to lead the team, but he's a sophomore in high school, so he doesn't know that about himself. So did I talk him out of chemistry? No, but I said, I would like you to explore some other things. I think you're going to find some other interests in the next few years, and don't be discouraged by that. You might still get your degree in chemistry, but you're probably going to run the company, or,
That's the thing, though, is like, I can't really speak for chemistry, but in the technology world, a lot of the bosses and managers are familiar with it and have done the work, but they're not the technical experts that some of these other people are. And the bosses and the managers are more, like you said, extroverted, and they know how to deal with people. They're personable, whereas some people just want to sit behind a screen and say, leave me alone, put me in my corner. This is what I'm doing. But, to be a boss of that guy or that girl, you have to be familiar with their work still. So you still have to know the stuff, right?
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
right.
There's even been discussions along those lines of, if we look at somebody's profile and they're a specialist, so very narrow focus, they're going to get in, find their niche, and they're introverted. And if they have really strong aptitudes, like high driving abilities, what we might find is, or the conversations we might have sometimes is, you're going to do your job at the highest level, accuracy, quality, and at some point then those promotion talks come. Because people see you're the best we have at this. Now we need you to train everybody else and lead everybody else. And we can tell by their profile that when that opportunity comes, it may not be in your favor. that's when some of the dissatisfaction comes, is when those more management positions come, and people who are built for more of the behind the scenes get a little more restless and burn out when they move to those positions.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that. Do you ever get any students, though, that just are across the board, excel in everything, extroverted, technical abilities, whatever it is? I mean, it just 100% on everything.
Yep.
You get those?
We do. Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Yeah. It's hard.
Do anything you want?
It is hard. A little bit. That's when we really dive deep into their interests. Like saying, you kind of gotta follow what you're really into, because you could be a writer, you could be an engineer, you could be a doctor.
Right.
Get some experience, get in there, see what feels right. And then we also do a values assessment, and that's really, that might change a little bit over the next few years if you do it with a high school junior. But it's really asking them, what do they want to get out of work? What's most important? So if that helping others is one of the top 5, then maybe not engineering. Maybe it needs to be more direct helping others and being in that medical field. Maybe that's what will help figure out that decision for them. If it's making money, if it's, I really want to be independent. I kind of want to own my own business. So we really ask them those things.
Sorry, you might want to move your mic just a little bit more this way, so it's
right
facing your voice.
Okay, sorry.
So
that can be a hard decision for those kids that have abilities and interests in lots of areas. But at least we can start having those conversations and help them figure out how to make those decisions.
What if their interest is to work as little as possible? That's what mine was when I was 18.
Nobody has actually fessed up to that, I will say. No.
You would have had a heyday with me.
Oh my gosh, it's great. With the ones who have the ability to do anything, they're coming in for clarity. So sometimes that can be a little overwhelming when we say, okay, we have good news and bad news. The good news is you could do anything. The bad news is you could do just about anything. But we do get it with conversation, and as we walk through all of the results, we do get it narrowed down, but they still have a lot of work to do. For every client we work with, they're going to get out of it what they put in, but especially the students like that, where really the world is open to them, and we just try to celebrate that for them and with them. But then we also bring up things like what you're doing. We're like, think outside of the box. You don't have to pick one narrow path. Think about all the things that you would love to do, and how can you bring all those into your world? You don't have to pick one traditional path. And so sometimes it is a matter of, okay, we see that your communication skills are really high. You're very creative. You have lots of ideas. And so we'll talk about a podcast or a blog. That can be your side gig. Maybe it's still connected to what you do every day, 9 to 5, and you're really becoming that specialist on your podcast or in your blog, or maybe it's not related at all. And that's just finding that additional outlet of how important that is for so many people when they have, when it's impossible to find one path that's going to meet all of those abilities, all those needs.
So if somebody comes up to you, or some kid comes up to you and they're like, I just want to drink with people on a podcast every day, you're not going to discourage them?
Well, we'll be like, we think that already exists. Somebody's already doing that. So
I tell you what,
come up with a different idea
my
first.
parents weren't too thrilled about it. They're just like, you can't make money from that. You can't do anything from that, which they're kind of right, which is why it's a side gig,
Right, exactly.
But it always could. You never know. But, I completely agree with you that this should not be, doing something like this podcast or whatever should not be your focus on making it your career, because for one, it's not very likely. For two, you're not going to be making anything at the beginning. And then you got to fund it from the start. You got to buy all the equipment for it. You got to maintain it. It's not something that's feasible for an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old to just jump into and say, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's going to fund it? Who's going to...
Yeah. You should have a solid foundation for your career first, and then do this stuff on the outside. And if it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, it was fun.
Right. It's really hard to tell kids, don't follow your passion.
I know.
But they're going to get it. They're going to realize they need some money. My son loves music, but he kind of found out early on, I know this business is really competitive, and also I kind of want a family. Like, he was looking forward to, like, I want a normal life, and I want to be able to afford that life. So, you know, it kind of, he's going to always have music as part of his life, but it's not his degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kids will get there eventually. And we do just try to keep it practical for them. Like, and that's where those values come in. Like, I see that you want to pursue music, but I also see that you value making money or
right.
or some stability.
Right.
And so what, you know, is there some an avenue in the music industry where you can still, you know, have a 9-to-5 job and some money, but also do your thing on the side. So,
well, the way I always viewed it too is, instead of your career being your life, like this, oh, I'm stuck with this is what my life is forever now. Use that and think of it more as like, this is a way for me to do things in my life that I want, you know, outside of work hours. It doesn't have to be you. That's not your identity. You can do anything you want with that money outside of work, but you have to have something stable there, you know?
Absolutely.
That's just kind of the way I saw it, but it took me till I was like 26 to feel that way.
Yeah. Well, then you have to start paying bills and getting insurance, and you're like, wait a minute, what's the best path for me? And that is a conversation we have for kids. Like, we don't have to plan out the next 50 years, and the choice you make today isn't saying you're stuck in one job, but what's the best next move to put you on a path, you know, to a successful career. And then, you know, you could get a job in marketing and go work for a company and end up in supply chain, or, you know, I mean,
for sure,
people can move, and and so you don't have to choose, like, what am I doing for the rest of my life, but what's the next best step? Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think you guys are doing it right, because you probably shouldn't try to choose what you want to do the rest of your life. You're not going to feel the same in different points of your life than you did when you're 18 or 28 or 38 or whatever it is.
We just want to move them out of the fog a little bit. That's what we hear a lot from, especially when we're working with high school students, is they come in and the student and the parents are just so overwhelmed to the point it's almost like a paralysis, where they're like, we don't even know what the next step is that we should take. So that's what this really lends to, is kind of removing that fog and helping them figure out what's the next step. We never, like Kristi said, it won't be laying out the path for the next decades. It's going to be what's a safe direction we're going to be moving in. And then, as we all know, it just starts to unfold. The more experience you get, the more you move towards that, the more clarity you get about, do I want to stay on this path, or do I want to make a little bit of a shift and branch out or branch over to something a little different?
Yeah, 100%. So going back to when you decided you had this idea and you decided, we're going to go ahead and move forward with this. What was that like, getting True Compass started?
Exciting and a little stressful. We opened in 2019.
Right before the pandemic.
Just months before.
Yep.
You know, we meet individually with families, so we could meet with them in their homes. We did that for a couple of months, and we were like, no, we really need our own space. So and we have a small office that we meet with families. So it wasn't a big outlay of money for this rent, but it was a little stressful at first.
Did you quit your jobs right away
Kristi did
to pursue this?
I did.
She jumped ship.
I jumped right away.
I stayed in the schools for one more year.
Okay.
Yeah,
and did a little bit of both at the same time.
And what was it like starting this business? I mean, what kind of stuff did you have to go through to even get it going and moving?
I would say, along with Kristi's description of exciting, naive. I thought it'll be like the open sign, and people would be banging down.
Flip on the open sign, and here we go.
Yes. I mean, I think in my mind, it's like everybody should have this, and they're all going to somehow magically know about it as soon as we're ready to launch. So that was pretty eye-opening for me the first year or so, of like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a whole nother job in itself of building the brand, the whole business side of it. We've never quit the test, the interpretation, the meeting with families, that we're 100% confident in. And I think we went in kind of with kind of tunnel vision of like, that's the job. That's what we're doing. And we're like, oh, wait, we also have to do marketing and accounting.
Yeah.
And we have to network. We're both introverts. What?
There's a whole nother side to this that I didn't know about.
So it was very eye-opening and stretched us. Is stretched. At least I should speak for myself.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much that I am not naturally comfortable doing that I've had to learn to be comfortable with, and have learned to, of like, okay, what seemed impossible 2 years ago of like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to accomplish that or figure it out. It's like, okay, I got it.
Well, that's kind of cool to bring that experience and that story with you when you're trying to advise kids, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now you've been there and done that, and you learned stuff that you're not good at, and you've done stuff you're not good at. You can actually use that knowledge now and share it and say, well, look, this is what I had to do when I started this business. I didn't want to do accounting.
Yeah. So true.
And everybody has parts of their job that they don't love.
Right.
And you're not going to find, oh, here's a job where I love every part of it.
Mm-mm.
But knowing, your strengths and weaknesses kind of helps you get through those bad parts. Oh, I know why I don't like this part, but I can get through it and then get to the good part later.
The part I don't like about work is going to work.
Going to work. Oh, that's sad.
No, it's not. It's fine.
Were you remote at any point during all like COVID?
For a little bit, yeah.
Did you
I
like
worked a little
that?
bit.
Did it change the level of job
I like
satisfaction?
it, but I get both sides of it, The fact of the matter is you have to work, so I can hate it or do whatever I want, but it's not going to change the fact that I either going to be working at home or working with people, and there's things I like about both, but yeah, it's just, I kind of have the attitude of complaining's not going to really do anything for me. I can't not work,
Well, you could, but
Well, you could, yeah. But then I wouldn't have the lifestyle I like.
right, exactly. Yes. We have those conversations with students as well, as when we present careers that they're a good fit for, we look at everything from what level of education do you need for this? Geographically, does it matter to you? If you want to be a marine biologist, but you're not willing to leave Kansas, may not be ideal.
There's not many spots open at Cheney Lake.
Right. And then we also look at the average salary. So to have that conversation of, is this going to allow you to have the lifestyle you envision? Unfortunately, there's a lot of teenagers that can't make that connection. They don't know what kind of the dollar represents of, I know what my lifestyle, I know what I want it to look like, but I don't know financially what that takes. So sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect there, but we do have those conversations and try to make sure they're looking at the big picture, the whole picture, and we want to equip them with all of the things they're going to need to know walking into a career. We don't want. There's some careers where the job demand. That's another thing we talk about. So if you're going to graduate with this degree you just worked really hard for and paid a lot of money for, and you get out there and you can't find a job in this field, if you're blindsided, that can be a big
That's
wrench.
a big problem,
Yep.
I feel like,
Yep.
right now.
It is.
My
So-
generation especially was always taught and told, just get a degree no matter what. Go to college, you'll be fine. Go to college. I heard that all through school, And I've seen a lot of people that I've known that have gone to college, gotten a degree, and they're like, well, what am I going to do with that?
Sure.
Guess I'll just go work a job that doesn't require a degree now,
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
So that's a problem, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do have students and families who are like, we're considering, technical school. Great.
Yeah, trade schools or whatever.
Here are the careers that don't require a 4-year degree that you're still wired for, because all of us are kind of wired for, any levels of those. And so it's kind of nice to be able to have those conversations and lead those kids. We get a lot of kids who walk in and they're like, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to sit at a desk. And they're kids who are hands-on. They've been sitting for 12 years, and that's why they don't like school. And there's so many careers out there that they can do and excel at that don't require calculus, and also don't require a lot of reading and writing papers, and they're going to be great at. And so to be able to celebrate that instead of making them feel bad, for not loving school.
And part of that, I think,
helpful.
is maybe the education system a little bit. How do you guys feel on the education system? Is it broken? Does it take too long to get through?
That's a whole different podcast.
Is it?
Man,
Is that too controversial?
I need some hours on that one. I personally can't speak to that because I have so many dear friends in education that I'm afraid I would offend.
You're going to offend them?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
I don't think in college you should be taking classes that aren't geared towards what you're going to be doing.
Amen.
Yeah.
I think it's
and
insane.
Maybe even those last couple years of high school.
Maybe even that, yeah.
You know?
We've worked with families from the UK, and that's how their education system is set up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, it's the first 2 years of high school feels probably very similar to ours. The last 2 years of high school, they are on track for what career. Like, if it's going to be healthcare, then they're taking all those science classes. So by the time they get to college, the only classes they're taking are for their degree.
See, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's one of my brother is 18. Well, he's almost 18. And that's one of his biggest things is he knows he wants to be an engineer. He's geared that way. He's going to be an aerospace engineer. He loves space. He loves science. He's in college, or he's signing up for college for next semester, right now. And he's like, why am I having to take these stupid classes that have nothing to do with what I'm going to be doing? Yeah. And I agree. I'm like, that's kind of a scam, right? Making people pay for classes that they don't even care about or need the rest of their lives.
It's a big business.
It's a big business. A lot of money in there.
Yeah, there is.
So that's another point that I wanted to get to is if somebody's unsure what they want to do you recommend college still? Because a lot of people might think, that's a waste of money if I'm going to be going to college for something I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to be paying for classes, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm here for. What do you recommend to that? We
always give them a range. Some of the careers are going to be college bound. Some will require trade school. Some might require a certification. Unless we have a student who is like, I am 100% a 4-year university, then we may not give the range. If we have somebody who's not sure, we'll give a range, and then it's up to them to research those. And so hopefully they've come early enough. Hopefully it's not, I have to enroll in college next month, or I'm leaving for college in a month. Hopefully they've done this with enough time to really look into all those options so that they can make that informed decision whether a 4-year degree is in their best interest.
Yeah, we never tell someone, oh, just go to college and then you'll figure it out. But it might be possible that some of the courses they choose, if they have room for electives, that might help them decide if they're deciding between two. But if they are going to take time off, I don't want them to just go serve coffee. Yeah. And not really learn anything else about themselves or use their abilities. I know a girl who took a year off, and she did go overseas, but she had these strong drive abilities. I'm like, you want to solve problems and you want to solve them quickly, and you're serving coffee. I feel like you're not learning any more about yourself. Mm-hmm. So instead of doing that, I wish she would have, gotten a degree or gotten a job in the medical community, which is what she did when she came back, and she figured out, oh, I do love this part, and now I'm going to go back and get my graduate degree in this. But wasting time finding yourself is not. You have to actually dive in and to find yourself.
You just got to do.
You're not hiding behind a corner. Oh, there's my passion. There it is.
Or in mom and dad's
you've got to jump in and be like, oh, this is what I liked about this job. Even if it's a part-time job, you'll learn some of that. But talking to people in those careers. So if you are going to take time off before you go get your degree, really use that time to meet with some people, job shadow, put yourself in that position and be like, oh, I thought I was going to love this, but it turns out.
Listen to podcasts.
Listen to the podcasts.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons that I do this is because I feel like people don't know what other people do all day long. What the job actually is like, Yeah. What are you actually doing all day? I know a lot of people that say, oh, I do this, or I work for this, and I'm like, what does that actually mean? Right. What are you actually doing? Are you have a shovel in your hand? Are you holding a cup? Are you out behind a keyboard? I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Right. I know. And I used to be like, I should know, so I'm not going to ask you because I'm going to feel dumb. And now I'm like, I'm just going to ask because I need this information to share with students. So
exactly.
I ask all the questions.
And that's what this is all about, is I'm just here to hear your story. I'm a dummy myself. I don't know anything about anything. I'm just here to have a drink. Tell me what you do, you know?
I love it.
Thank you.
It's such a great idea. And we want our students to have this information because some of them, we tell them, you know, go job shadow, and they're so introverted, they don't want to pick up the phone.
Right.
And do that. But if they can go watch some videos and see in action, oh, this person's spending most of the day behind the desk, and I like that because they don't have to talk to other people, then they might be more interested in that career.
For sure. Yeah.
And just kind of seeing it in action, any of those videos or would be helpful.
Like my dad was on here. That's a pretty cool one if anyone wants to check that out, because he was the same way. He was kind of, when he graduated early actually, and was like, you know, I don't have any clue what I want to do, but I know the post office is a safe route because my mom worked there, one of his older sisters worked there, and so he was like, I'm going to work at the post office, you know, I'm just going to do that. I don't really have any ambition to do much else, didn't do really well in school, so he did that. But that's when he realized and found out that I don't actually want to be out here carrying mail. Like, there's other things. And he would walk by offices and see people sitting in an office working on papers at their desk, and he was like, they're sitting in there and I'm out here in the rain. I want to do that. But that's how he figured it out, you know. So like you said, sitting in a corner,
Yeah.
people that just want to find themselves, like the way you find yourself is by doing things.
Yep. Absolutely.
Just go do stuff, and if you don't like it, then quit and do something else. You're not going to just sit there on your couch every day and go, who am I? What do I like to do, you know?
Right. It's true. It's true. And having the conversations too.
Yeah, for sure.
Of the day-to-day, like you said, what do you do every day?
Yeah,
we can assume, or we see it on TV or in a movie. It's come up a handful of times with students where the parents will be like, well, they watch a lot of those Criminal Minds shows. Like, is the reality, the day-to-day, is it giving a realistic view of that job? Maybe, but I'm like, you better figure that out before you jump into that.
Right.
Yeah. So what did your dad end up doing?
He ended up becoming an accountant.
Oh.
So yeah, he went back to college and he decided to grind through it, even though he hated school. And he ended up becoming an accountant and worked his way up the ladder, and now he's been pretty successful in his life. And he thanks himself every day for taking that initiative. And I don't know how it would have worked out if he would have gone to college first and not known what he was doing. I don't know.
Right,
I mean,
It's true.
But, you know, I have sort of a similar story as well, because I never, ever would have pictured myself in technology.
Really?
Never used computers, wasn't a gamer, did none of that stuff. I was always outdoorsy. I still am. But, you know, that was the last thing I wanted to do, was anything with computers. I just thought it was a nerd's job. Like, I don't want to be a nerd.
Oh, my God.
All the people that were in computers that I knew were nerds.
Right, right. That's the...
Now I'm a nerd, I guess, kind of. But I just figured it out just because I kind of fell into it. So I lucked out.
No kidding.
And here I am.
Clearly have some natural ability to learn it and to pick it up.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got very lucky falling into it, because I would have never chosen that career path.
Are you happy with it, though?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great fit for me. I mean, and that's the way the world is going, too. So I was actually going to ask you as well, what are the booming careers right now that people should get involved in or take a look at?
You know, we do look at those reports that come out. Highlands, the company, doesn't necessarily give us that information. They are concerned more about the data from their test. But you know, if you look at the industries that are growing, like wind and what's the solar energy,
like renewable energies.
Yeah, those energies, and healthcare. Is always growing.
Healthcare is always out there.
I imagine if you want to be a teacher, you're going to find a job, because I feel like it's just this mass exodus, you know, that's happening.
Technology,
but
definitely.
for sure, technology. Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, then they talk a lot about, you know, there's certain things. There are a lot of tech jobs. I mean, HVAC, all of those things where, you know, we told your generation to go get a college degree, and now there's nobody doing the other jobs.
Exactly.
And those are, you know, paying well, automotive techs.
Yeah.
They're making a ton of money. And if you're wired for that, great. You don't need a
That's-
college degree. Just go get good at what you're doing and serve the world.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I going to say about that? So there's that all of those tech type jobs that are growing as well.
That's one thing that I've noticed just by interviewing people on this podcast is I've interviewed like an electrician, an HVAC technician, several other trade jobs. And one thing that's common amongst them is they say every time, like, I had no idea this was a thing when I was in school. I didn't know this existed. You know, I was taught get a degree or you're going to be working some, hard labor job that you're not going to enjoy. They never knew that you could take this trade school route and make really good money doing trades. And on top of that, like you said, the mass exodus, I hear that all the time from my buddies that are in HVAC and stuff is like, once these old guys are gone, the boomers, there's not going to be anybody left because people my age aren't joining those career fields. It's all baby boomers still.
And what is that? Is it the lack of awareness? Is it because we've kind of created a stigma, which I despise, that has happened?
I do too.
It's very unfortunate. But yeah, I'm curious, what does it take to get that back, to fuel that? And because there are people, like Kristi said, who are going to do that and do it very well and make a killing. And then you get that without all the debt, too.
Exactly.
So you're starting out sometimes a starting salary higher than a college grad.
For sure.
Depending on the major, obviously. And you have no debt. And so, I know I've worked with some teenage boys that's come up, but they also have a profile for entrepreneurship. So if you're going to be an electrician, can you build that foundation, and then down the road, maybe you can be your own boss and you can create that business.
Exactly.
So that potential there,
You don't have to start out making your own business in electricity or plumbing or whatever. I mean, sometimes just doing the job for a while is how a lot of people end up successful with their own business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Most CEOs out there that you see probably were on the plant floor at one point or out doing a service job, Yep. So that's important for people to know, I think. That's why, like I said, I like doing this because everybody has that backstory, and a lot of them, it was just jumping into a job right out of school, and then it kind of just went from there. Yeah. But everybody likes to see that successful CEO, and go, well, that's what I want to do right there. Like, well.
Well, and for a long time there was that data. If you have a college degree, that could mean $1 million more over the course of your career. I think that's shifting. It just depends. If you have a college degree in art history, that might not mean that much more money than your electrician's job. But if that's what you love, go for it. But if you don't love it, don't think you need that degree.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a slippery slope because you still better have a plan.
Right.
And you better have goals. We're never going to be like, don't chase that degree. You have to have a plan. So that's kind of the scary part of a 4-year degree is not for everybody, but know what your path is so that you don't flounder and don't end up 30 and still a little bit lost of what do I want my career to be. That there needs to still be goals early on.
Yeah.
We really wanted to do a billboard that just had like a gamer in the basement, and because don't let your kid live in your basement. Let us help.
30-year-old
seemed a little bit more the negative route to go.
What do you have to say about the
really
kids making millions on gaming right now?
True.
It's crazy. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
it is. But can every kid who wants to?
No.
Where are the plumbers and the electricians? We're all going to be gamers.
Yeah, it'd be a really, really gross world if we had all gamers and no plumbers.
And my middle-aged mom really comes out with all of that because you're right. There are people making it, and these influences, all that. Again, you got to have a path. If that's where you end up as you're chasing your goals, great. Yeah. But I'm, at least if I'm speaking for my own child, we're not going to make gamer number one priority.
You got to find a way to make money first.
Exactly.
Kind of like what we said earlier.
Right.
Unless you're the best gamer in the world, then you better prove it now before you
and that's not the reality. So, if few reality checks in my house. It's not a fun place.
It's tough though, because I understand, because I was in that mindset too. I can see exactly where you'd be like, well, Timmy over here makes money playing video games. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to go work a real job. That's for losers.
Yeah. But, even those people that are making money doing those things, they're working pretty hard. They're putting a lot of effort into that. Just think about, my husband talks about going to Nashville all the time. I'm going to go someday. But but he talks about, every bar has somebody that you're like, why aren't they on the radio? Why don't I know this person?
Why aren't they selling out arenas?
Talent. Yes. So there are people that just either have that it factor or work a little harder or drive or just have the connections. And so they're the ones making money, either whether it's music or gaming or influencing, or maybe it's luck. But you can't totally rely on that, So
does the connections part ever come into play when you're talking to students? Because one thing that I've learned, and everybody will say this too, is that it's about who you know, not what you know.
Yeah. Those are part of the conversation, especially depending on the field. If they're wanting to be in film, if they want to be a producer, if they want to be in the arts or an actor, musician, those conversations definitely happen. But it's still, in a casual way, always part of the conversation of get yourself out there now. Talk to the people in these fields, do the job shadows, do the internships when it's time, because it will be in your favor when it's time to find those jobs.
Yeah, make those connections.
Make those connections. It's never going to be a waste of time.
Yep.
And we'd love to help students make connections. And sometimes we do. If we have someone who's interested. I had a student the other day who's like, well, I grew my own microgreens for a little while. And I'm like, okay, well, I actually know someone who does that, so I'm going to hook you up. So if we can, the more people we meet and people who love their jobs and at least want to either just have a conversation or talk with people, we'd love to help them make connections, even if it's just to help them find out more about that career.
Yeah,
maybe
for
not
sure.
Get them a job. But yeah, if we can be that person to help, that's one thing that we've talked about. Like, do people want to volunteer to talk to a high school student or not? But when you love your job, sometimes people really are interested in like, oh yeah, I'll share that. So,
100%, yeah.
Which are a different type of connections than like, the film industry, but still helpful.
I mean, if you ever come across people that you want to get the word out there, send them my way too. I'm willing to interview anybody in any career field, and I'll dig into their daily lives. I'll get it out of them,
Yeah, good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of students who are wired for tech and who are interested in that path. What would you tell the 18-year-old self about that career world? Or what do you wish you would have known?
It's not as nerdy as you think.
It's not as nerdy as you think. It's actually pretty cool.
Really?
The person that's the tech person at a company is usually the key holder. I mean, you're more powerful than anybody. You can shut down your boss's account on the computer if you want to. So it's cool in that aspect, right? There's kind of a feel to it, like, wow, like I know more than all these other people that are working here. But on a real note, there's a lot of different specialties you can go into, and there's so many different routes you can take. So just having that basic understanding first, working a help desk job, kind of get familiar with everything and know how it all works, and then find what you like about it, because there's all sorts of different stuff. You could do hardware, you could do software, you can do coding, you can do hacking. Hacking, by the way, is becoming a huge thing right now, and it's only going to get bigger, in my opinion. So if you like figuring puzzles out and finding ways if you like figuring out how to get into stuff and hacking your way around, it's a good career to get into. There's a lot of money there. You can also work on your own. In technology, there's so many different avenues and so many different ways to do it. I would recommend it 100%. You can work remotely. You can work at a company,
Do you feel like your job is, do you work kind of by yourself at a desk most of the day, or do you have a lot of interaction with coworkers and
most of it's at a desk, but it's also, there's both. There's days where I'm by myself most of the time. There's other days where I'm interacting with everybody, and it kind of is what you want it to be. That's the beauty about technology, is you can kind of do whatever you want with it. You're not stuck in one thing. which other career fields are more specialized on their own, like plumbing or HVAC or something like that. With technology, you can literally just do so many things. Somebody that's a network engineer has no idea what a red team hacker's doing, you know, or even like a software engineer. They're just totally different things. And the only way you figure that out is by getting a general understanding at the beginning of how it works and a basic knowledge of technology, computing, and then just kind of go from there. You can do customer service your whole life too. You know, you can work with other people. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Look at me talking all techie like this.
Well,
It's very impressive.
I like it because it helps our students. But even like I have a son who's only 15. He just turned 15. Loves computers. Probably pretty hands-on. I haven't done his ability battery yet. But when we get those kids who kind of need, like, I need a physical product at the end of the day, I worry that coding won't be enough, that they really want to build the computer or, you know, here's my product, here's what I made.
Well, I will say one thing about that is, like, I have a buddy that's a software engineer, and he's not very artistic at all, but he can write the code. And his job is the artist will give him a design and say, create this, like, web page or create this application, even if it's just a calculator. I want this big blue calculator with big buttons on it. Well, he's the one that writes the code, and when he's done, there it is. The application's built.
So he has created it.
He has created it. There is an
yes.
end product that you see, and you're like, wow, you know, that's what I did with all these numbers and letters in a sequence.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Because
So-
that's definitely something that we identify with our test is those people who need to say, this is what I did, here's the result of what I've done today. Whereas our job is like, oh, we just talked to people for a couple hours and we still felt like it was work.
Right.
Or, you know, teachers, coaches, there's no product, even though
Nothing
there's
tangible.
a result. It's not as tangible. And so when people have that drive, they kind of can't ignore it. And so that's one thing that we kind of have to sometimes point out to people. And I don't want them to get too far away from that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that in coding and computer programming, there's a lot of opportunities to build a product that you physically see and you're satisfied with it.
Yes.
We created that.
Okay.
I do think that. There's also
know.
opportunities to just write code and that's all you do. And it's just a big screen of code all day, which is fine for some people.
Thank goodness some people are wired for that. I don't know who they are.
I don't either. They're freaks, in my opinion.
There's all kinds, and we need them all.
Yes, for sure. You know, it's really cool talking about the test, and especially when it comes to spatial. So we work with adults also. If it's an adult coming to us because they're a little restless or they're wondering, is this the best fit? We look at their spatial abilities first. Do they have something, if their ability is saying they need something tangible, they need hands-on work, they need that end product, and they don't have that, then, right there, that's everything we need to know. It's just very fascinating and eye-opening. And what's interesting about the test and the research behind it is if you're not tapping into your natural abilities through your work, you won't feel that right away. Like the first decade of your career, we're all getting established and we're making a name for ourselves. And it's kind of that adrenaline that's pushing you through. And then that 35 to 45 is when it really kicks in of this isn't satisfying me. And so it's pretty cool when we sit down with adults and look at their profile and see you have really high abilities or you have really high aptitudes that your current job doesn't have an outlet for. So you have this void almost that, the point of these aptitudes, those are the things that are going to fill you up and make you feel satisfied and successful. And so there's this hole basically. And maybe it doesn't mean you have to switch careers completely. Maybe you can shift a little bit in what you're currently doing, or maybe it's just an outlet outside of your career, outside of your job that will get that hands-on piece or the people piece if you're just behind a screen all day. Just being able to help adults find that balance.
So you're doing it for all ages.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have to do this.
Oh, it's so
I'm anxious to see what I'll
it's
be.
It's so cool.
You know what's funny is I was never interested in anything. I never wanted to do anything. I was kind of a bum student, to be honest. I did terrible in school because I didn't care, wasn't there very often, and I just never really had any interest in anything. I was just like, whatever, I'll just do whatever, and then joined the military, and that's where I got introduced to technology, and that's kind of where I'm at still to this day.
Yes.
So that's another route people could take. Don't be afraid of that either.
Absolutely.
But I would have never gone that route, if it wouldn't have been thrown on me. Like, oh, this is what you're doing now. Okay.
Was it a steep learning curve? Or do you feel
like it was for me because I was just never involved, like I said, with tech. It wasn't something I did. There's a lot of people my age, most people probably, when they were kids that were already in that world. They were building their PCs for gaming and whatnot. That was never, I remember when I first was learning about it, I was like, what's a video card? Is it a physical card? What is it? Like a credit card? I don't know. And, just learning all that stuff from day one, I was like, wow, okay, this is how it works. And that's just how I ended up where I am now. But from the beginning, I just didn't really have any interest. So I could see how it'd be hard for you to steer somebody like me, especially, that's like, I don't care about any of that. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. And we do get those kids who are like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of this. But at least we can say, well, based on your aptitudes, here's things that we think you're wired for. Go dive in and learn about some of these and try to narrow it down.
That's what's beautiful about it, is you're not really trying to steer somebody or bully their direction. You're just kind of there to say, hey, this is what you can do. You're capable of all of this stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And in situations like your own, how you describe yourself, we look at it as we're planting the seeds. And hoping and praying that you'll water it, and something will eventually bloom. And a lot of times for the unmotivated teenager, that information is pretty powerful for parents. That's who then we're talking to more. Yes, we're encouraging the student and hopefully exciting them of, the classroom isn't your thing. That's no big deal, because look at all these other paths that you're going to be great at. You'll be brilliant at this. And hopefully that will kind of light that fire. But regardless, the parents are equipped with that information. And so we really hope that they kind of continue to kind of carry that torch of what
keep that little voice going on in the back of their heads going, hey, remember this? Remember you're good at this?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Remember you could do this if you wanted to.
Right.
Yeah.
You talking about a bum student. I listened to the one with Greg Smarsh, and I seriously felt like I should find his email and send him an apology. Because he is like the nicest guy.
Yep,
and
shout out to Mr.
Teacher.
Smarsh.
So he's a teacher at Andale High, and he was on the podcast.
Oh, I didn't listen to it.
And I was not a serious high school student at all.
Nope.
I guarantee you I talked during every class. I was like the annoying student that I'm sure teachers just... Thankfully, I got my act together in college and I started caring, but I was a bum student in high school.
Hey, cheers to that.
Cheers, I guess.
Fellow bum student here.
Who actually, only because we're redeemed. If we were still bums, it would be sad.
I think I'm a bum still, but I'm just having fun,
You're bringing a paycheck in. So
I'm bringing a paycheck.
Fit the definition of a bum.
True. I can at least say that, I guess. Mm-hmm. Well, what about people that want to be in your career field that you guys do? Do you have any words for them?
Well, no, because we don't want any competition. No, I'm just kidding.
I feel that.
No, we have met some amazing, we've met a lot of business coaches, and we recently just met someone who's a high school teacher who's becoming an educational coach. And so it's just kind of bringing that whole world of coaching to students. And I think it's growing. I think people are more interested in kind of learning about themselves. My dad would have been like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what is that?
You need a life coach. What's a life coach? Any of those
just
things.
Get a job.
But you just get a job and you just
work and that's it.
But I think people are more interested in like finding more about themselves and deeper meaning in life, and so I think any of these careers that kind of help you navigate that are growing.
For sure.
And in some, in some HR departments, there's people like us. There's, industrial psychologists who are kind of doing what we do for one company. Like, I think you're wired for this. I think you'd be more, you'd be happier in this position. So learning all you can about personality, which even though those are subjective tests, they're still helpful.
Yeah.
Robyn is wired to be an accountant, apparently, and
is that right?
does not fit her personality. And so that's where we have to be like, okay, this is on your list, but I don't recommend it for you. Your values and your personality tell us that's not where you'll thrive. And
I don't touch our books for True Compass, by the way.
You're like, nope.
I may be wired for it, but I have no desire for it.
Yeah. So I do think that there's, a lot of, if you're interested in like helping people and helping them grow, then looking into fields of psychology, but maybe as it's related to business. I always tell people, like, if you don't want to do just psychology, then don't just get a psychology undergraduate degree. It's not going to open a lot of doors for you. But if you want to go on and get your master's or PhD, then there'll be doors for you. But if you want to do something more in the business world, there's industrial psychology, there's HR.
There's a lot more avenues than people think. When it's not just black and white, like, oh, a psychologist is this person that sits in this chair and interviews this person.
Right.
There's way more things out there to do. And you can create something on your own too. If you find a void out there that's like, why doesn't this exist?
Yes.
That's kind of what you did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's important for people to understand too. It's kind of ironic. Helping people find their career is a career. That's a career of its own. Right?
Who knew?
So that's important for young people to know too, is that if there's something out there and you're like, why doesn't this exist? Where is that? Where is this person? Well, do it.
Create it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Make it happen.
Because the kids who we're testing right now, by the time they graduate college, there's going to be different careers that are even on their list.
Oh, yeah.
Careers are being developed every day. So knowing, not just taking an online test and saying, oh, I'm wired to be this one career, woohoo, I'll take that. You can walk away from our process like, this is who I am and this is who I'm not. And I kind of get an idea of the things that I'm wired for. And so as different careers come up, I'll kind of be able to judge, this is a good fit for me or not, rather than my test said this.
Yeah. Think about how much the workforce has changed from like our parents. Think about our parents, not yours. 50 years ago, the selection was so much smaller of the careers that you could. Do you want to be a teacher or a nurse? So it really was acceptable to choose a career and stick with it for 45 years.
Oh, for sure.
Where it's just not the world we're living in anymore. This guidance has to be there. And even what you were saying about like the coaches, of kind of figuring out who you are, with this great resignation, that's the direction we're moving. People aren't satisfied. They're not accepting that anymore. If I'm going to pick a job, I'm going to accept it for whatever it is, and I'm going to work at it for 45 years. That's just not our world anymore.
Nope.
So we have to do some of this self-awareness and dig in and figure out what's really going to satisfy you and bring you balance in life, so that we don't end up in this place again of where our society is right now, of this great resignation.
I agree. And just getting the word out there that there are good trade jobs and options out there, that there could be a mass exodus in the near future once the baby boomers start retiring for good,
Yes. Yeah.
So true.
So, well, I love what you guys are doing. It's awesome.
Thanks. We love what you're doing.
Thank you. Do you have any advice out there for anybody or anyone else that wants to do what you do, or for a student out there, or anything you want to say?
Everyone should have this information about themselves.
No matter your age.
It's
age. Fascinating.
We get a lot of people, like, we mainly work with students, but every parent is like, I want to take this test. I want to know.
Yeah, I kind of want to take it now.
Because everybody needs to know this about themselves. You kind of, the way I answer my questions on a Strengths Finder or a Myers-Briggs, tell one story, and then this Aptitude puts something different on it, and I'm like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
So my advice, one, is to get this information, do some self-awareness. Any of those personality things tell you more about yourself and give you words, so those are good. And if you're interested in something like this, then look into, a field that might help you coach or teach or mentor. And sometimes people are natural teachers, but they don't want to work in the schools. But there are a lot of corporate jobs that do types of mentoring or personal development or things like that. So you don't have to do that traditional teaching, even if you're wired for it. You could apply it to the business. world. So look into those types of careers.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great advice.
Yeah.
You're doing good things for the world.
Thanks.
It's
We're
rewarding,
having fun.
isn't it?
Oh my gosh, we love it every day. I'm absolutely love it.
Yes.
You're going to hook me up with one of these tests, right?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to make that
Can
happen.
we reveal your results?
For sure.
Through,
I don't
the
care.
podcast.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it can't be any worse. People already think I'm just a bum that drinks, right?
He's a
Turns
bum
out
with
he's got
potential.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, it's awesome. Absolutely. We'd
Where
love
can people
to.
find you? Where can people find your test?
Go ahead. So we have a website, truecompassllc.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can call us, 202-8090. We do free consults. So even if you just want to talk about your specific situation and need to figure out, is this the right thing for me? We'll have those conversations. We're not in it for just the sell. We'll talk you through, is this going to be what you need in your stage of life right now? Give us a call and we'll figure out what's going to be best for you.
And like always, it's all in my description. So go check out my social media pages or my YouTube description. It's all right there. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. And let's get this test for me. You know?
All right,
Let's.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can post my
excited.
results everywhere and show people.
Sounds good. Thank you,
All right.
Jesse.
Well, cheers to you guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thanks so much.